and it strengthens the government too. So what would a shadow cabinet look like here in the United States? We certainly would make it our own American version. We have an amazing wealth of talent on the Democratic side of the aisle in Congress. People loyal to the Constitution and ready to be the watchdogs for an out-of-control Trump administration. Democratic leaders Hakeem Jeffrey in the House and Chuck Schumer in the Senate could appoint 26 members of Congress to go one-on-one with each member of Donald Trump's cabinet. If Trump attempts to weaponize the justice system against his political opponents with Matt Gaetz at the helm, we could see incoming Senator Adam Schiff as our shadow attorney general, arguing against replacing our independent prosecutors with Trump loyalists. If Trump seeks to eliminate the Department of Education, Congresswoman Jahana Hayes, a former Teacher of the Year, could step up as shadow education secretary to loudly defend public education in the United States. If Trump orders Marco Rubio to hand Ukraine and much of Eastern Europe to Russian President Vladimir Putin, Congressman Greg Meeks, as Shadow Secretary of State, could be a strong voice in support of maintaining international relationships and protecting democracy at home and abroad. Senator Michael Bennet as Shadow Treasury Secretary, Congresswoman Susan DelBene as Shadow Commerce Secretary could help ensure the middle class and small businesses have a voice in government and call out Trump's proposed tax cuts for billionaires and corporations. As Shadow Defense Secretary, Congressman Adam Smith, a great representative for the people of Washington and not a Fox News host, could counter Trump's threat to use military force against his political opponents and work to ensure that the Department of Defense stays loyal to the Constitution and not some wannabe dictator. And Senator Tammy Duckworth could argue against cuts to the Department of Veterans Affairs that would delay the benefits and care our service members have so rightly earned. If Trump hands over the EPA to big oil ally Lee Zeldin, we could see Congresswoman Kathy Castor pushing back for environmental protection and conservation to protect the air we breathe and the water we drink. And if Trump pushes to ban abortion nationwide, Congresswoman Rosa DeLauro could step in as Shadow Secretary of Health and Human Services to defend women's right to choose and argue against the gutting of Medicare by Trump and his cronies. Mr. Speaker, new times require new solutions. The Shadow Cabinet isn't just about opposing extreme MAGA attacks on our government. It's also about making clear what we stand for, not just what we're against. It's time to show, not just to say, what we believe in: justice, accountability, and democracy. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I yield back the balance of my time.
Well, wasn't that special? Good morning, everybody. JT here, Serenity Farms prepping. A shadow government, huh? You mean they didn't do that the entire first Trump administration? Haven't done it since? Spoiler alert to that idiot from North Carolina. We are not in the UK. Hello, you're a few thousand miles off. Feel free to hop on a ship and bring your happy ass over there. Okay, so I am sure that you've seen that clip of the shadow government several times by now. Every news channel out there, Patriot ones, have played it over and over ad nauseum. What none of them are talking about or following up on after playing that video is what I believe it leads to, regardless of whether there's a peaceful transition or not. And by the way, that video was made as if that particular demon rat is acknowledging that Trump is going to become presidente. Nothing like fresh eggs. They're still warm. Okay, so here's where this shadow government could lead us. we've heard the word secession over the last few years. But it was often referred to that a part of a state, like where I am in upstate New York, we've been pontificating about seceding from New York City for years. It'll never happen. People running it just, they're not mean enough. Okay, but aside from that, other states, the New California, parts of Oregon, you may see a entire state such as Texas want to secede, or as one popular podcaster says, Texas becomes the new leader of the republic. But they have their own cesspool shithole cities like Austin, Houston, and Dallas that they need to secede from them first. And when a cesspool shithole city is located in the middle of a state, what do? Build a fence around it? Or, okay, so I think that a shadow government it ain't going to be a shadow government. They're going to literally put it into effect. And I think you may see libtard states actually form their own nation. So I think instead of the United States of America, we end up with the divided states of America, and not just a state here or there seceding and calling themselves a separate entity upon themselves, because one or two states, red states likely, try and break away from a libtard cesspool regime, and the libtard demtards simply cut them off from everything. Now, Texas boasts that they are virtually self-sufficient from the rest of the United States, and they could do it. Well, they do have their own electrical grid, but they added solar and windmills and got about 10 snowflakes in the air, and it crashed completely. So that's not working so well. They don't produce enough food to feed all their people. They do have oil, but who would they sell it to when a libtard regime would ban them from all interstate commerce, travel, all that kind of stuff? You see where it goes. It would be a logistical nightmare, which is what could likely happen with a divided states of America. Because all your red states aren't in a group with no libtard states in amongst them. And all your cesspool shitholes aren't either. So how do you draw the lines? You can't. So what do you say? 30 red states just say we are the Republic of America, and 20 blue states say we are the Communists of America. And we're separate entities, and you're on your own. Okay. Let's go just with electric. The East Coast has 5 huge electrical grid power stations that basically send electricity across the United States. The West Coast has ports. The East Coast has ports. Almost all deliveries from foreign countries come into those 2 ports. Yeah, Texas has a couple, but ships don't often route that way because it's too far. So, how would a military protect one or the other of a divided states of America? Who would be funding that military? Would each nation have their own military? I like to hope that the overwhelming majority of people in the military still consider themselves conservative patriots, and the left would have a really, really hard time assembling a military of Americans. Of course, they could use all the illegal invading military age men they brought in. The UN would supply them with some troops, CHICOMs, and maybe a couple other scumbag NATO nations might as well. But I think the leftards would find out very quickly that all those nations that they've been raping and pillaging for years and years don't want to come over here to help them. They would come over here to conquer them. Maybe because they may also fear that the red states and their military might try to stop them. It would just be ridiculous. I think we would find ourselves at some point with a situation similar to Ukraine, where several of the areas bordering Russia want to be part of Russia. Now, that's not what this whole thing over there was started over. We can blame Israel for that. The bioweapons labs, if you think there's a plan and Putin and Trump are working together to expose all the money laundering, sex trafficking, weapons, drug, and... okay, different topic. But you see what's happening under the guise that those Ukrainian areas want to be part of Russia, and Ukraine said no. Or rather, NATO said no. So I just think it's a logistical, military, supply chain. Every single aspect of society now wouldn't function for a very long time. How do you do travel? It's just too much. But the left seems to be leaning in that direction. So we're going to find out what happens. Let me know what you think. That's all I got for now. JT.